This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Channel 158. Stormy Bonantoni alongside Femi Abebefe today.
Hello.
In for our guy JVT. And this is funny because we very rarely, if ever, have had the opportunity to actually work together. We both worked the same show for a long time with Michael Lombardi, the Lombardi Line crew here, but like never together.
Some might call us Lombardi Line legends. Some might call us my guys in the desert dignitaries.
Whoa, there we go.
That's a throwback, right? That's VSiN 1.0.
Yes.
It's my guys in the desert there. But yeah, good. I think this is our second show together by my count.
Was it Follow the Money that we filled in on together?
I think our guy Lombo was out doing something. So I think I was filling in for him, and it was me and you on Lombardi Line.
You did your best Lombardi, and you were yelling about the 76ers, and it was great. It's all coming back to me.
There's a Femi Abebefe, Will Hill, Michael Lombardi text chain that we texted Michael throughout the playoffs, his Sixers. I joked with him. I said, hey, Sixers in 6 against the Celtics. They actually end up winning the series. I was like, oh, it was actually 7. My bad. I was wrong. He didn't have a whole lot of faith going into that one, but we then exchanged some text messages after the dismissal of general manager Daryl Morey. Those I will not share on this airwaves. But yeah, Lombo's still doing well, still rooting for his Sixers.
So good. And you've actually got something you're rooting for right now. We got 2 MLB games in action. The Guardians are up 2-0 right now, and the Tigers in the bottom of the 3rd, and we got a tie game now in the bottom of 3 with the Pirates and Cardinals as you're sweating out. What's the under here for that 5?
Under 4 at minus 125, and we just got a home run here, so it's knotted at 1 in the bottom of the 3rd. You have now this like tarps off shirt thing, which I've been the last couple days trying to figure out what the hell this is and why this became a thing. Apparently, it originated in college football, but now has like made its way to Major League Baseball. So this is a new thing for me, who's trying to stay offline as much as possible these days. But yeah, the baseball fans, like a bunch of dudes out there out in the outfield, just waving their shirts around like a helicopter,
Something tells me that's not going to translate to this program.
No, I think that these are FCC airwaves, so we will not be doing that here. No tarps off for us on Money Moves. Maybe a couple of quips, but none of that. But yeah. Hopefully we don't get any more runs is what I'm like. We got 2 outs. Let's get out of this inning. My guy Ashcraft has been solid today, a little bit undervalued, I thought, heading into this game, especially Dustin May as well, the pitcher for the Cardinals. Both guys a little undervalued, which is why I like this first 5 under. But a lot of baseball still left to be played, so hopefully no more home runs.
We will keep tabs on this as we go. I know Femi's got some additional MLB bets that we'll get into later on in the program. Plenty of baseball today as well, as we'll have Chris Jimenez, former MLB catcher, turned analyst over at SiriusXM MLB Network Radio. He'll join us in 30 minutes, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for all we have to come today. Time to set the table. It's time to run it down.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
We have a jam-packed 2 hours for you, and among the news items that we're going to get to today with OTAs underway, lots of interesting nuggets coming out of the NFL the last 24 to 48 hours. We found out Aaron Rodgers is back, although it will be the end of the road this season in Pittsburgh. Joe Burrow making some bold predictions, and a couple players getting arrested, which is always very fun and unfun.
Yeah, slow down, folks. We don't need to be driving 137 miles per hour. That's just reckless for you and for others out there on the road. But you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow. This AFC North, that's a little spicy. You got Lamar not at OTAs, which is per usual, but still, first-time head coach. You would think he would show up for that. Nope. Myles Garrett has yet to meet Todd Monken.
That's a headline.
What is that? Like, how is that a thing? That's not even in passing. Has he been to this facility since the end of the season? Who knows? But a lot to get to, though, from the OTAs.
And quarterback questions there, which continue to get more and more interesting as we go.
Buried the lead on that one there.
A little bit. But I know you say let's slow down, but let's go fast here because we've got some good basketball to get into today, including can just the Cavs recover from what was that Game 1 collapse? They give up the 22-point lead in the 4th quarter, Game 1 at MSG against the Knicks. We're also, in addition to hoops, going to talk about the Eastern Conference on the ice today as well, with the Canes and Habs getting underway.
Yeah, I think this is a really, really interesting series here. Will Carolina be tested is the big thing here, because like Montreal, they've been the road warriors, as they've been Game 7 in Tampa, Game 7 in Buffalo. No worries, no problem. Overtime, we're ready for the moment. Let's see if they can go up against this Carolina team that we've had a lot of questions over the years about them in the postseason. Maybe this is the time they finally get over the hump.
Oh, man, I have said it repeatedly on this program. The amount of money I have wasted on the Carolina Hurricanes and their futures, it's insane, but could this be the year?
You know what I called them? And this was at the start of the playoffs, and we did this on VSiN Primetime when we had Aaron Halterman, our VSiN teammate, on with us. I called them the NHL's Baltimore Ravens. Like, they look great on a sheet of paper. The analytics always stay, the acronyms, all that stuff says Carolina's great. And in the postseason, they come up short. Maybe, though, this is the year for Rod Brind'Amour and the crew.
Oh, I just hope so for Canes fans' sanity at this point. We'll also do a deep dive into Conn Smythe today, a little bit later. That's a market I know you're really excited to get into. And we're going to start, though, from the Eastern Conference to the West. The best in the West yesterday. Boy, it was fun on the ice and the hardwood. The Golden Knights get the upset in Game 1 over Colorado without Cale Makar. That seemed to play a big role, but also on the hardwood. And I know you were on the air last night here at VSiN, watching both of these games as they unfolded live. Let's start in OKC, where the zigzag is in full effect. They get the win and cover in the bounce back after dropping Game 1 to San Antonio. What were some of your big takeaways?
Yeah, the big takeaways, I think, have to be the injuries. You know, like, that's like the big thing here. And on the Oklahoma City Thunder side, this is an injury that they've been dealing with throughout the playoffs. But once again, Jalen Williams aggravating that left hamstring that he hurt during Game 2 of their series against the Phoenix Suns. Who knows how long this will be? Because, like, usually those soft tissue injuries, you aggravate it, then it tends to be a little bit longer, as we've seen him deal with this all throughout this season. And then on San Antonio's side, which was a big blow, on top of already missing De'Aaron Fox for Game 2, as we missed him in Game 1, Dylan Harper now with a hamstring injury. Well, he's going to have an MRI today in San Antonio, but not having Harper and Fox, I thought, was the difference in that game, because the turnovers, once again, were the big thing for the Spurs, and that's how OKC was able to pull away so many points off turnovers, so many points in transition, and got to give SGA his props as well for the 30-piece.
I think that what you just mentioned, though, is, for me, looking forward in this series, going to be something we really need to keep tabs on, because you mentioned De'Aaron Fox. What is the severity of this injury? Because a lot of people, we talked about this yesterday on the show with JVT, he said a lot of people were surprised that De'Aaron Fox wasn't available for Game 1, then felt like it was going to be automatic for Game 2, and he's still held out yet again. You see the report from Shams that it's actually a high ankle sprain. So how deep is that going to be? And now with the Harper element of it, and Stefan Castle, who is so great in so many areas, but being able to manage the ball and not turn it over, not one of them. Like, that seems to be, in my opinion, if Harper and Williams both don't come back, I think Harper for San Antonio is a bigger issue than Williams for OKC because of the depth the Thunder have.
Oh, 100% there. And like, especially if you factor in Fox into it, if Fox is not able to come back as well. And like, that's the thing with Stefan Castle. He's so good, but they're asking him to do so much. This is a second-year player, by the way, folks. Like this guy has not played a lot of NBA basketball, and now it's, hey, be the primary defender of the two-time MVP and also run the offense. Like, at some point, I know he's young, but fatigue has to set in, and you're now going up against the best defense in the NBA in the Thunder, a defense that's so great at ball pressure. That's why you're going to get the turnovers that you're getting, which has been the detriment of San Antonio so far in this series, despite winning Game 1.
So you mentioned SGA getting back to form. He hadn't really looked like himself the last couple of games. He ends up having 30, 9 assists, 4 rebounds in the bounce back after Game 1, 24 points on 23 shots. The efficiency was not there. And he discussed after the game kind of adapting to San Antonio's defense.
Honestly speaking, I think we just did a better job of attacking them. In the first game, I still feel like we got like really good looks. They just didn't go down. But I guess just got a little bit more comfortable with their type of defense. Obviously, it's very unique and different from literally every other defense in the league, so it takes some getting used to. But we're still going to have to keep getting better throughout this series if we want a chance to win the series. Really good team, really good defensive team, really good. They check all the boxes, so we're going to have to continue to get better. Tonight wasn't good enough to win the series, and we know that, so we'll take the W, but we got to keep getting better.
Fair assessment?
I think it's a very fair assessment. And usually, like oh, we got to keep getting better. It's like kind of like canned PR nonsense. I actually think he's right. To me, my eyes tell me through the first 2 games, San Antonio's been the better team. Now, the injuries are going to play a big factor in that as well. Like, if San Antonio's not healthy, OKC is going to win this one. But I think if you're the Thunder, you have to get better. And also, too, like, I mean, like, can we just briefly acknowledge SGA with the glasses and the the whole getup.
He's very fashion forward.
The sideline where he's like throwing shade at Hartenstein jokingly, but nobody knows that he's joking. Then it becomes a thing. I do think, just to put a bow on it, he is actually being like completely honest, because if they're being honest with themselves, San Antonio has actually outplayed them in this series.
And throughout the course of the regular season as well, right?
Yep.
Like, that has been the story. You mentioned Hartenstein defended Wemby on 47 plays last night. They changed their approach on Victor Wembanyama. Wemby that is, went from 21 shots in the paint game 1 to less than 10 yesterday. So even though his stat line still was what it was, and it looks really good on paper, they did limit him significantly compared to the game 1 performance.
I hate talking about officiating, but I feel like that's going to be a storyline heading into game 3, because, I mean, you can see on the replays, like Hartenstein kind of like just being annoying. I think Mark Dagnall told him, you know what? Like you're not going to stop this guy straight up. Just annoy the hell out of him. And like, that's how we're going to try to slow him down. And that's what it was. It was a lot of pulling of Wemby, grabbing on his arm, making sure that he can't go up with both hands for a rebound. Like, he was just being like a gnat on the back of his like neck or something like that he couldn't get rid of, and it worked. Yeah. Like, it was an impactful performance by Isaiah Hartenstein. Can that translate to game 3 and game 4? You know, home court tends to change how officials go about this thing. We'll see, but I thought it was a really good adjustment by Dagnall and the coaching staff for OKC. With
that in mind, San Antonio, as this series will now shift, 2-point home favorites coming up in the next game. So we'll see how that looks. One last thing on this, just because I find it fascinating. Even with how well they defended Wemby in the game, OKC plus 19 in the 21 minutes Wemby was off the court, shooting 61% from the floor, average distance of the shots taken about 12 feet. They were minus 17 when he was off the court, shooting down to 40%, and those shots about 4+ feet farther away. Like, that, if that doesn't show the impact of this guy, I don't know what does. Unbelievable. Okay, we got to take our first time out of the day here on Money Moves. When we come back, let's talk about those Cleveland Cavaliers. How might game 2 go tonight in New York? We'll be right back.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools. But what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
How about them Golden Knights last night? Getting the upset win over the Colorado Avalanche in game 1. 4-2 final there. I know it was a sweat for some of you total bettors last night, wondering whether or not maybe Colorado was going to tie it up after they made that third period push. Are we going to get 3-3 and then this thing's going to go over even though it's been an under game on? No, you didn't have to. You're fine. You made it through. We had so many of those bad beats, though, last round, so I don't blame anybody for losing their mind.
I mean, as someone who last Wednesday was on the Minnesota Wild and they go up 3-0 within the first 6-7 minutes against the Avs, and then just slowly but surely give up the lead.
Because of course,
and then the people were on the under, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I lost. Like, how about giving up 2 goals in the final 3 minutes of regulation and then losing in overtime? There was a little bit of PTSD. So last night though, I was on Colorado, so I was like, let's do it again, boys. Let's get me home. But of course they came up short. But yeah, great game and a great start for VGK, who made a statement. And I don't think that this was just a one-off. I think the Vegas Golden Knights are very, very live in this series.
Vegas coming out and playing a road game like that and taking advantage of the spot Colorado was in, not having Cale Makar, who's the best defenseman on the planet, and what he's able to do on the back end, especially as a scorer and a facilitator of scoring, I think was really significant for them, not only just from a confidence standpoint, which they now have, and quite frankly have had throughout the course of the postseason. We hear John Tortorella talking about that a ton from the time that he took over. His biggest biggest priority was getting this team to believe in themselves, have confidence in their game, and it has shown up time and time again. But a massive win, and for how much depth we talked going into this series about on the Colorado side, I think Vegas's depth really showed up for them yesterday, that they do have the ability to roll 4 lines. The guys that showed up for them, the fact that Dylan Coghlan scores the first goal of this game, did you see what the odds were on this? 70-1 for Homeboy to score the first goal of the game. He was a 15-1 anytime goal score shot. First career playoff goal, and first goal for him in the last 4 years. He's been largely like playing an AHL role. He comes back to Vegas after leaving. First goal since 2021.
What a time to do it in the Western Conference Final, right? In the game 1. And this might get us off the tracks a little bit here, but I do think it's important to this conversation as it pertains to this series in particular. You've been following this Vegas Golden Knights team all season long. You're much more locked in on the hockey than I am. I show up for the playoffs like most folks do, but I parachute in for the good stuff. What has been so different between Tortorella and Cassidy? Because you mentioned Tortorella's maybe given them some more of that belief that they didn't have earlier this season, but they won a Stanley Cup with Cassidy. Like he's a really good coach, and everyone's been knocking on the door for him to get a job and an interview, but it's a whole other conversation as well. But they made that change, and I know the schedule maybe lightened up a little bit. They get to play Anaheim, but whatever. But still, just looking at them, they look much better than what we saw for the majority of this season. Based on how they're playing with Tortorella, are they good enough in your eyes to beat Colorado, and what do you think has actually changed?
I think they certainly have the capabilities of it, and I feel bad. Obviously, I'm a former Vegas Golden Knights employee as well. I am born and raised in this city, so this has been kind of the team that helped shape my love of hockey. So I do root for them. I was very excited for them to get the win yesterday. I still predicted Avs in 6, though. I think that Colorado is the better team, but the Vegas could certainly push this thing out. That's why my lone series bet here was over 5.5 games, because I think that they have the capabilities of extending this. I did not expect them to get game 1, and the fact that they did here, I think, really reshapes this series now in my mind. Your question, though, to go back on what has changed so much, and this is just my personal opinion from the outside looking in and speaking to a handful of the people that I have, Bruce is the type of guy that over an extended period of time can wear on you a little bit. He is a grinder. He will tell you what he thinks when he thinks it. He will continue to go at you on certain things. And potentially for a team, despite all of the success that they had, maybe that had just run a little bit stale in some of the players' minds, which then had become a stale game on the ice. And Torts comes in, he's a fresh voice. The last time that he was coaching this really young team where he's just teaching them how to be pros. He has this whole group of highly skilled veteran guys. Yes, he's like, I just need to help get a team that is already there one step better. That's all that he feels his job has to do. So he's honestly been pretty hands-off with them for the most part, just tinkering lines and making subtle tweaks along the way, and all the while really believing in Carter Hart, who has been really good this postseason for the Golden Knights. Goaltending was the biggest issue for Vegas in the regular season, and the fact that he's elevated his game when it matters most, I think, has been impactful as well.
This Vegas team, because I was talking with a buddy of mine before the playoffs started, they were the ultimate wild card in these playoffs, just given the fact that they just made the coaching change and had only played about 7 games or so under John Tortorella. But you go back to the preseason, this was a Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah.
This is a team that had a higher point total than the Avalanche. They are a legitimately talented team, and they're not scared, clearly.
Yeah.
This is not the President's Trophy winners, oh my goodness. No, we're just as good, if not better than these guys.
They won a cup more recently than the Avs have, And with that, so the adjusted series price now goes from Colorado at minus 260 down to minus 120 for the series. Vegas from plus 210 to even money at this point. And in terms of the Stanley Cup odds now, this is the first time in forever that the Colorado Avalanche are not your favorite anymore. Carolina is the short shot at plus 155, Avs plus 220, and the Golden Knights have come down from 6-1 to now plus 350 to win a Stanley Cup. We'll talk more about this a little bit later. We'll have plenty of Conn Smythe discussion. I do want to get your first look, though, at tonight's NBA Eastern Conference Final Game 2 between the Knicks and Cavs, because this is one that I also have a ton of questions about coming into tonight. After what happened to Cleveland, they have this epic collapse, Femi, but they also were up 22 in the fourth quarter. So I feel like there's a lot of positives to take away from the game, despite the result not being what you wanted it to be. So how do we approach this one tonight?
I think you approach it as this is going to be a long series.
Okay.
And I thought going into this, I told Will, I was like, hey, this is going to be like a Knicks in 6, but a comfortable 6. I don't think it's going to be a comfortable 6. I think this is going to be edge of your seat, maybe also even like a Knicks in 7 situation here, just because Cleveland is also really talented. And what's so dangerous about a team like Cleveland, you never really know what you're going to get. You know, like when you expect, oh, we'll get a good performance from the Cavs, they kind of spit the bit. Oh, like the Cavs are dead. They show up like they did in Game 7 last round against the Detroit Pistons. But I think they have some schematic advantages, especially with both Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and what they can do on the interior. Those are really good defensive players in both. Like Mobley won the Defensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago. You know, like he's a really talented player who can also shoot the ball. Now, I know like James Harden is going to get a lot of the flack after how the game ended and everything. And like, I get it. We all have our jokes. I have my jokes. I'm the first person that'll tell you don't put your hard-earned American dollars on James Harden. But I think that was more so Kenny Atkinson kind of hanging him out to dry at the end of that Game 1. So if they can kind of get back to more of what they were doing in the first 3.5 quarters of this game and get back to Donovan Mitchell maybe having the basketball late in situations as opposed to just having Harden be that ball-dominant player, maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers can put a little bit of pressure on them, as the betting market seems to think that they can, because this was 6.5 last night, 6.5 this morning. I'm seeing 5 across the board now.
Yeah, total 214.5, 215.5, depending on where you look right now. But to your point about James Harden, it felt just like so repetitive late in this game. Screen, switch.
Yep.
James Harden, who's your worst defender, getting left on an island against Jalen Brunson and getting cooked. And so you have to adjust from that. They did, but it was too little too late, and maybe that would have helped if you called a timeout at some point. Neither here nor there. You mentioned
just standing by, like I'm Timothy Chalamet.
You mentioned Donovan Mitchell, though. A lot of us were wondering, like, is he okay? Is he hurt at all because of the way that he wasn't having that attacking mindset late in the game? Any concerns about Mitchell?
He's not on the injury report. So, I mean, if we take their word for it, it's like, I guess he's okay. Now, like, at this point in the season, I'm sure everyone's dealing with some sort of bruise or, like, you know, like nicks and all that stuff.
It's not going to be an Indiana Fever situation.
Yeah, we can maybe get to that a little bit later. My goodness. There's no one's on the injury report. We're all good. Everything above board, everyone's good to go. So we can assume that he's okay, but there's something that changed. I don't know if it was just, hey, we want James to be the guy, because like Harden is a really good facilitator, and at his peak, he's one of the best passers in league history, but he's not at his peak anymore. And Donovan Mitchell is your best player. And when Donovan Mitchell was initiating the offense, the Cavaliers were getting whatever they wanted. So you would hope that Kenny Atkinson can go back to that to even up this series. But if they don't, maybe they find themselves in a 0-2 hole going back to Cleveland.
I do think that's such a key, and especially because I was listening to some of the availability from Kenny Atkinson yesterday, and he said, like, a lot of the attention, and I think rightfully so to an extent, was on the defensive element of that collapse and just letting New York do whatever they wanted, it seemed. But he also said, our offense died out there. And Donovan Mitchell obviously is such a huge key part of that. And you see Karl Anthony Towns getting all of those defensive boards when they were missing their shots. They weren't getting any second chance opportunities. So let's make some baskets. Let's have our best players get involved, and let's get some boards to try to create some of those second chance opportunities inside when we can.
No, 100%. And like you can point to the fact that Cleveland didn't shoot the ball very well, but New York didn't shoot the ball well. Sure. Like the offensive regression, we were all wondering if it was going to come for the Knicks. It showed up after the long layoff. I mean, they were shooting 60% from 3-point range in the series against the Sixers. Well, they shot the ball poorly in Game 1, which that has to be a concern if you're a Cleveland backer or a Cleveland fan of, hey, the Knicks didn't play that well. They were a little bit rusty, and we still found a way to lose the game. But I don't think Cleveland's out of this series by any stretch. I think the Knicks will win it, but I think it's going to be a competitive series.
We're obviously going to be talking about this game all day here on the network, but if you want some written previews, some prop bets, or if you want just a list of every host and guest bets that have been made on this game, head over to VSiN.com. If you're a VSiN Pro subscriber, which, by the way, VSiN.com/subscribe, $199 right now, and you use our code PRO, gets you 14 months instead of the usual just annual 12-month subscription. You get unlimited access to all of those picks, all of the articles, and so much more. Don't miss out. We're talking MLB with Chris Jimenez coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Sports Betting Network, SiriusXM Channel 158. Stormy Buonantony and Femi Abebefe with you. A couple MLB games in action right now, which I will not discuss scores as Femi is sweating something out right now. We're just going to let that sit right there for a moment. And in the meantime, Very excited to have Chris Jimenez join us here on the Progressive Guest Line, former MLB catcher, of course, host now with SiriusXM MLB Network Radio, among other things. And Chris, you are probably sick of me bringing up Shohei Ohtani every time that you're on the program with us, but I have to do it again after yesterday because, especially considering he just came off 3 straight starts where he was solely pitching. He goes back to the two-way duties yesterday. And, oh, by the way, just a first pitch homer to get things started before then pitching 5 scoreless innings. Is he and the Dodgers just inevitable again this year? Does it feel that way?
Yeah, of course they are. Are you kidding me? Like, the Dodgers are like just playing with their food right now. They could care less about the regular season. I mean that in a nice way. Like, it's not that they don't care. I just think their main priority and their main goal is to set themselves up for October. They're one of the very few teams, if not the only team in Major League Baseball that can legitimately say almost every year that they will be in the playoffs. And I think it's funny because it's like, what else can you challenge Ohtani to do at this point? And, you know, Stormy, it's funny that we talk about this, like with the Cy Young. We've been talking about that a lot the last couple of times I've been on. And I almost feel like it's like, okay, it's not only inevitable. He's got an 0.73 ERA now. He's going to have a blow-up start at some point, but that's going to just raise his ERA to like a 1.2. And what he does offensively, like at what point are the voters going to get like voter fatigue over this? Like what more can he possibly do to like wow people? Because I feel like we are at the point where it's like, oh, sweet, another first pitch leadoff homer. Like, okay, you only hit 1 homer today? Like, cool. But he's that good and he's raised the bar that high that it's pretty impressive that that's how we're kind of talking about Shohei Ohtani nowadays.
Well, Chris, you mentioned Cy Young, so I want to stay here because, like, you look at that NL Cy Young race, there's about 5 guys or so that are shorter than 6-1 with Skeens, and Sanchez has been unreal. You mentioned Ohtani, Sale, Mizorowski. I mean, he might throw 110 miles per hour by the end of the season. Like, who's your early Cy Young favorite at this point in the National League?
That is a fantastic question because you're spot on. You know, it's not a walk-away Cy Young award, just hand it to Shohei Ohtani at this point. Like, he's legitimately going to have to continue to pitch the way he's pitching. But I think, you know, that he's very capable of doing that first and foremost. But the competition, like Chris Sale, the fact that he's 38 or 39 and he's doing what he's doing is extremely impressive. I mean, he's continuing, the velocity's ticked up a little bit. I didn't know that was even possible when you're that old because I try to throw like 45 right now and everything hurts. And he's, you know, just a couple years younger than I am. So, you know, I don't really understand how that works. But Jacob Mizorowski is definitely a name to watch. I know he's kind of the hot name because he throws extremely hard. I do have some concerns, though. He throws a ton of strikes. And that's a good thing when you have elite velocity and a 96 to 98 mile an hour slider, which I didn't even know was physically, like from a actual physics perspective, if that was even possible to do. I don't know how you can make a ball move at that rate of speed. I have some concerns about Miz in regards to can he continue to keep up this type of velocity with this type of workload. And they've done a good job of kind of being, you know, cognizant of that with him being a young kid. But I'm a big believer in the human body is only made to do so much. And I obviously am not wishing anything on anybody here from an injury perspective, but it starts to get in the back of your head, like, how long can this young man do this? Christopher Sanchez, though, to me, is the guy that just continues to put up like top 3 numbers every year and doesn't get as much notoriety as he should because of the Ohtanis and the Sales of the world. Keep your eye on Christopher Sanchez. He got off to a little bit of a slow start, but he looks every bit of an elite starter at this point in time in the season. And the Phillies have been playing a lot better lately as well.
Oh, for sure. Since making the managerial change, it's looked a lot different. Paul Skeens is your favorite, plus 230, just to put some numbers to this conversation. Christopher Sanchez, plus 250. Shohei, third on the board at plus 550, and then Sale and Jacob Mizorowski, both at 7-1. Because you mentioned earlier in our Shohei conversation, the Dodgers maybe not really caring about the regular season as much. I was looking at this market for the best record in baseball when all is said and done, and LA is odds on at minus 110, but you have the Braves there at plus 250, Yankees 6-1, Rays plus 650, Cubs 12-1. Is there any other team you think is worth a shot as we go here to get some plus money on to have the best record in baseball at the end of this thing?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
I think you pretty much nailed it. I could even say, you know, I think the Dodgers for sure. I have concerns about the Braves, even though I love their team. And they were my number 1 bounce back candidate team just because of the talent they have on their roster and the fact that They were decimated by injuries last year. It looked like, at least in spring training, that they were going to continue that trend this year. But they have gotten some incredible pitching from their starting rotation. Their bullpen is disgusting. And Ozzie Albies has announced his presence with authority again. He's back, and it's good to see. Plus, Ronald Acuna just came back. He's now playing defense as well. So they're kind of whole for the first time in like 2 or 3 years. The Dodgers are the Dodgers. You know, I'm not going to say they're sleepwalking because that's obviously not the case. But they're kind of sleepwalking. They don't, you know, and I don't mean this in a negative light. Like, this is maybe one of the best compliments you could give a team, that they are so unbelievably talented that they are kind of sleepwalking through the regular season, and they have the ability to turn it on where other teams don't have that ability. The Yankees are a team, I think, for sure, they're continuing to get better and better. Garrett Cole making his first start tomorrow, which is only going to help. When you got Cam Schlittler, who's a Cy Young candidate in the American League right now, he's been unbelievable, even though he took the loss yesterday. Tough luck loss at that against Trey Savage, which was an unbelievable game, by the way. Yeah. Great pitching game. And the future of our sport from a young pitching standpoint. But the Yankees, to me, are that team. They're a little light offensively, which I don't think I've ever said once in my entire lifetime. But pitching-wise, they are stacked like you can't believe. Their bullpen is, again, really, really solid, but their starting rotation is the envy of Major League Baseball right now, other than the Dodgers, who have like 7 Cy Young Award winners and only 5 spots to start them, so they have to be creative with that.
Well, Chris, I want to stay in that American League East there because you mentioned the Yankees. They're doing what we all expected. But going into the season, I mean, you had the Red Sox with so much hype. The Blue Jays, I mean, they won the pennant last year and probably should have beat the Dodgers in the World Series, if not for blowing in that Game 6. And we all know the classic Game 7. But the Tampa Bay Rays, here we are again. We're the team that makes the most out of having so little. How are they doing this, and can they sustain this once we get to the second half of the season?
That might be the question of the year, is can they sustain this? Because to be honest with you, this is the one team that I will never count out. They somehow, some way, they have a secret sauce of taking pitchers and position players off the scrap heap that nobody else wants, turn them into monsters, and then trade them away for more elite young talent. And they are arguably the best in baseball at that transition period of finding ways to continue to replenish not only their minor league system, but their major league team as well. And I think, truthfully, I'm a big fan of Kevin Cash. I've known him a really long time, played against him. He was my bullpen coach in Cleveland for a couple of years. I think he's kind of the perfect guy for leading that group of players. They're young, they know they're good, and now they're starting to get a little bit more confidence, which could potentially be a really scary thing, because the Rays of any team can pull a guy out from Double-A. He comes up, nobody knows who they are. They go out and throw 7 shutout innings for 9 consecutive starts, and you're like, where the hell did this guy come from? Like, why haven't we heard of this guy when internally the Rays have been talking about this guy for a long time? So can they hold this in this division? It's going to be tough, but truthfully, guys, the way the Orioles have been playing, the way the Red Sox have played, I mean, the Blue Jays, to me, haven't really been given a fair shake just because they've been crushed by injuries. And they're going to get healthy at some point, and I think they're going to find a way into the playoffs. I don't think they'll necessarily win the division, but they'll find their way into the playoffs. But to me, Tampa Bay is the team to watch in that division because they start to believe in themselves, man. You get a young group of guys like that, the sky's the limit.
We've only got about a minute left, but speaking of sustainability, how about what the White Sox are doing? They're over 500 right now. I mean, if the playoffs started today, they'd be in the field right now. Can they keep this up?
Right. I absolutely think they can. Yes. They have a ton of talent that is getting that first experience to the big league level. And again, Will Venable's done a tremendous job over there. They just continue to find ways to win baseball games, and they're continuing to build confidence and gaining that experience. That's going to be extremely important because they are going to be a very tough out in this division for the next couple of years, to say the least, if not this year.
You're the man. Thank you so much for the time, as always, Chris. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you. You too. Hey. And everybody, make sure you check out Loud Outs on SiriusXM, MLB Network Radio. You can follow Chris at Chris Jimenez with a G, by the way, 5 on X as well. The White Sox 5-1 in the AL Central behind the Guardians, 2 games back of the Guardians in the division right now, plus 370 to make the playoffs. And let's give a nice round of applause here because I did treat this this game in the corner here to my right like it was Voldemort for a second because we didn't want to mention it. But you get the F5 under in the Cardinals.
Let's
game.
go. And it was a little hairy there. You never want to count the chickens, but under 4 in the first 5. Shout out to Ashcraft and May for getting it done as we kick off the Memorial Day weekend with a nice little winner.
I was really proud of you while we were having that conversation with Chris. You did one of the fists, let's go, but just outside of the microphone so you couldn't hear it. So good. Okay, we got
fired up.
We got to step aside. When we come back to the NHL because we kick off the Eastern Conference Final on the ice tonight. How will Game 1 play out? We'll discuss when we return. Don't go anywhere.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Stormy Buonantony and Femi Abebefe in for JVT today. You see and hear the giggles from the man to my left here. We just had a surprise commercial visit from Mike Palm in the studio, VP of Operations here at Circa. He comes on with us every Friday. Wow, that was 2.5 minutes of just tears.
He was throwing 101 on the corner. He was. If what he did in that 2.5 minutes is anything that he's going to do for the 2 segments with you guys tomorrow, you want to tune in for Money Moves on a Friday. My goodness.
My goodness. Our boy was coming in hot today.
It's been a minute since because we used to do the Friday football show. It was me, Mike Palm, and Mike Pritchard. And it was a blast. A couple hours just, breaking down the games heading into the weekend. And it was always a few laughs here and there. But he still got it.
He was getting so deep on Pico Armstrong that I forgot. I failed to even ask him about what we're about to talk about here. Is the Eastern Conference Final on the ice, and we're going to rehash it tomorrow with him when he is in here. In studio, my gosh, see, he's thrown me all out of sorts. But I didn't even
got us rattled.
Exactly, I didn't even get his opinion on this series though in this game because this is a very interesting dynamic for Game 1 specifically because of the rest situation here for Carolina. Mm-hmm. And for anybody who missed it, they've been flawless this postseason, 8-0, back-to-back sweeps, the first team in the modern era given this format that has been able to do that. As such, they have had 12 days now in between their games, which is the most we've ever seen, taking on a team in Montreal who has coincidentally played the most games and played more time than anybody else, including not only both of their first and second round series going 7 games, but also 5 overtimes amidst those games. Mm-hmm. So they have played a lot of hockey to this point. And so I have questions about how the Canes are going to be able to, come out given the time off, because it's hard enough to replicate game speed, let alone playoff game speed with that much time off. How your goaltender is going to respond given how well he has played. That's such a position that requires, for a lot of goalies specifically, I know Freddie Anderson among them likes to get into a little bit of a rhythm. Yes. He has had all of that momentum come to a halt. But also Montreal on the other side, which version of them are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that is in great form because they've been playing so much hockey, or the one that's got tired legs because we saw that coming out of the first round series in their first game against Buffalo? So I don't have a bet on Game 1 tonight. I know you do. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I don't is because I want to see how this game goes, and then I can kind of react and formulate some opinions going into Game 2.
It's not exactly apples to apples, but doesn't feel a little bit like the NBA Eastern Conference Finals and how that kind of went. Like Cleveland coming off the 7-game series, the Knicks were coming off of a sweep of the Sixers, and the way they were priced in the market was so high. I mean, they've been shooting the ball so well. Carolina, it feels like this is the peak for Carolina in the market. They're literally now the favorite to win the Stanley Cup after Colorado's loss last night. To me, I look at that and the 11-day layoff, which we have in the rundown, most since 1919. Yes. Like that's insane. It's more than 100 years, this kind of a layoff. I'm just not so sure how this is going to go. Like you mentioned, I do have a bet on this game, but I would be kind of treading lightly. This is not a massive bet for yours truly here. Like this is a like you mentioned, fact-finding mission, if you will.
Have a little fun, have some skin in the game.
Yeah, have some skin in the game, but this is a fact-finding mission because this layoff was just so long, and how does that kind of hurt this Carolina team? Or maybe it's the old rest advantage where it does help them, the fact that they are fresh, having only played 8 games.
So we I was going to play this sound a little bit later, but I actually want to play it real quickly for you here. Coming off of last night with the Vegas Golden Knights and their win over Colorado. Nathan MacKinnon, after the game, was asked about what needed to change and how things transpired. Can we play the sound from Nathan MacKinnon real quickly? Because it does tie into my thoughts on this game.
They didn't do a whole lot either. It was kind of a nothing game, and then they got a few goals. And really good team, obviously, but I thought we did a lot of damage to ourselves. Guys kind of everywhere. Execution, like I said, needs to be better, and obviously we're capable of being a lot better than that.
Is there anything to really take from how that game ended, or is it?
I've just said execution like 5 times. I think that's what hurt us.
So you can sense the agitation there, but the theme, execution.
Yeah.
Colorado had 9 days off before that first game. And obviously now Carolina, having had more rest than that, that was the first thing that came to my mind when I heard MacKinnon say that yesterday. Jared Bednar was also on the mic talking about maybe a little bit of a lack of urgency and some other things that it's like, could that be translatable for Carolina tonight? That was kind of where my head went.
And I think it's a very good point to make because we see it not just in hockey, but in other sports as well, to kind of go back to the Eastern Conference Finals kind of parallel in the NBA. Those first 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters, the Knicks, they look pretty rusty, right? They look like they were a little bit out of sorts. They didn't look like they were clicking on all cylinders like they had been in the previous series. I know that they can try to simulate it in practice, and they could try to do these things to stay sharp. Practice is not the games, especially high leverage games that Montreal has been playing in a lot of this. I mean, like they're playing game 7s, which take a lot out of you, but at least keep you sharp and keep you crisp. And they've had a couple of days as well since then. So I feel like it's going to be more of a detriment than it is going to be an advantage for Carolina here, just at least in the early going. Not to say that, they're cooked for the series or anything like that, but I find it hard to believe, especially at the price that you would have to lay to back the Canes. I can't do that given this unprecedented layoff.
They do have great home ice advantage. They've been great in Raleigh all season long, but minus 205 for this game 1, given the situation they're in. I'm with you. It feels a little bit steep for just from a pricing standpoint. Plus 170 does appear attractive, at least on Montreal in game 1. That said, I have not been shy about this. I am on Carolina in this series. I laid the game and a half with them. I have them in my official picks on the ESPN page that we had to do as people that cover the sport for the network. Yep. I have Canes in 6. I think I just find it so hard to believe that they're not going to get through this. And I mentioned earlier how much money I have invested and lost backing Carolina in the futures market previously. And I didn't pull the trigger on a future ticket for them at any point this year, and now they're the favorite to win the Cup. Their Eastern Conference history is one to behold in a negative way. Mm-hmm. This has really been the ceiling for them for years and years and years. Swept in 2019, swept in 2023, won their first game in the Eastern Conference Final last year when they were already down 3-0 and end up losing in 5. So 1-12 in the Eastern Conference Final under Rod Brind'Amour. That one win, their lone win in the Eastern Conference Final in 20 years. They have not gotten to the Stanley Cup since Rod Brind'Amour, who's their head coach, was a player on the team. Could this be the year? I think it has to be, because you don't have the big bad Florida Panthers on the other side. You have the youngest team to make the playoffs, the youngest team to make this round of the playoffs in my lifetime, in 33 years.
Wow.
You have to take advantage of this, and you have to do it quickly.
How much, though, like when you compare Montreal to the Ottawas and the Philadelphias, is this a step up in competition for Carolina?
Yes, absolutely. And I think of the two opponents that the Canes have played to this point, Ottawa was the better of the two when they got matched up with Philadelphia. For as great as a story as they were in round 1, and I had them as an upset pick over the Pens, it's not comparable with the Carolina Hurricanes, right? Ottawa, if there was a team that was going to give them a shot, it was going to be the Senators, and they too got swept.
Yeah. Ottawa was like a trendy, before the playoffs.
Yeah.
People were like, Senators make a deep run and all that stuff, and then we saw it go 4-0.
Absolutely.
But close. It was a close sweep.
It was.
Yes, those games sounds like an oxymoron,
low
but
scoring and tight, yes. Yeah. However, Montreal has more offensively than what those teams have been able to offer. And I'm very excited to see specifically the Montreal power play that is so capable against what is like the best penalty kill in the Carolina Hurricanes. That head-to-head is going to be awesome, because the other side of special teams, like Carolina's power play is and Montreal's penalty kill is So a big deciding factor, I think, potentially could be, is Montreal's power play going to be able to click? And then also goaltending. We talk about Frederik Andersen and how masterful he has been this postseason, the best by far of anybody else. But is Freddie gonna Freddie in the Eastern Conference final? Because we've seen it before. And he had a really rough regular season. Jakub Dobeš has been unbelievable, and he has stood tall in Game 7s as a rookie, which is crazy. But does the moment maybe get to you when you get this deep in the playoffs? Like, that's another question I have. So special teams and goaltending, big questions. I think Montreal should give the Canes a better run for their money than anybody else has to this point this postseason. I certainly think they're capable of winning at least a game in this set, but Carolina should handle business. They're the far superior team.
If not now, when?
If not now, when? Come on. And listen, as we're talking through this, remember, this time of year is so fun with the NHL and NBA postseason going on. But the calendar never stops, and it never stops with the Sharp plays either. They're covering it all, winning for 15 straight years. All of it documented. They've got the logs posted publicly when you go to sharpplays.com. And we know in this industry, sometimes transparency, it can be rare. When the Sharp plays move, the sportsbooks take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they find the value before numbers shift. Check them out today at sharpplays.com. When we come back here on Money Moves, we're going to get into some of the NFL news we've seen over the last 24, 48 hours. Some interesting betting markets associated with some of the stuff we've seen come out as well, which is always fun. And plenty more hockey and NBA, obviously, as we go. Stick around. We'll be right back.